Hello and welcome to Millennium News Hour. I am Tanziba Nawreen. In today's bulletin, we will present top and trending news from across the nation and the world. Let's begin with the headlines of the day. Trump pleads not guilty to federal charges that he illegally kept classified documents at Florida State. NATO leader says Ukrainians are making progress and advancing against Russian forces. US says 22 soldiers injured in Syria helicopter accident. US lawmaker group warns South Africa punished over Russia ties. North Carolina Republicans seek to strip Democrat governor of elections board control. Rights groups to screen BBC film on Modi before White House visit. At least 9 people injured in Denver shooting. The Beatles are releasing their final record. AI helped make it possible. Putin says he might try to seize nearby territory in Ukraine to prevent cross-border strikes. Nottingham police say man fatally stabbed 3, stole van and ran down 3 more in English city. Thousands evacuated in India and Pakistan as cyclone Biparjoy approaches. Palestinian President Abbas begins China visit as Beijing seeks larger role in Middle East. France accuses Russia of faking websites to sow confusion and disinformation about Ukraine war. Sprinter Tori Bowie died from childbirth complications, autopsy says. Denver Nuggets take home first NBA title with win over Miami Heat. And Kylian Mbappe informs PSG he will not extend contract, media says. You were listening to Headlines Now News in detail. Donald Trump became the first former president to face a judge on federal charges as he pleaded not guilty in a Miami courtroom Tuesday to dozens of felony counts that he hoarded classified documents and refused government demands to give them back. The history-making arraignment centering on charges that Trump mishandled government secrets that, as commander-in-chief, he was entrusted to protect, kickstarts a legal process that will unfold at the height of the 2024 presidential campaign and carry profound consequences not only for his political future but also for his own personal liberty. Trump approached his arraignment with characteristic bravado, posting social media broadsides against the prosecution from inside his motorcade and insisting, as he has through years of legal wars, that he has done nothing wrong and was being persecuted for political purposes. But he sat scowling inside the courtroom with his arms crossed as a lawyer entered a not guilty plea on his behalf in a brief arraignment that ended without him having to surrender his passport or otherwise restrict his travel. But the gravity of the moment was unmistakable as he answered to 37 felony counts that accuse him of willfully retaining classified records that prosecutors say could have jeopardized national security if exposed, and the trying to hide them from investigators who demanded them back. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg told President Joe Biden at an Oval Office meeting on Tuesday that Ukrainians are making progress with their counter-offensive, which could bolster their position when there is an opportunity to reach a diplomatic end to the war with Russia. The support that we are providing together for Ukraine is now making a difference on the battlefield as we speak, Stoltenberg said, because the offensive has launched and the Ukrainians are making progress, making advances. He added, it's still early days, but what we do know is that the more land that Ukrainians are able to liberate, the stronger hand they will have at the negotiating table. Biden said NATO has grown more unified during the Ukraine war, and we are going to be building on that momentum when the alliance holds its annual summit in Vilnius, Lithuania on July 11 and 12. The White House meeting, the fourth between the two leaders, occurred at a moment of particular peril and uncertainty for the 31-member military alliance. The United States military said a helicopter accident in northeast Syria has left 22 U.S. service members injured, though no enemy fire was reported at the time of the mishap. The service members are receiving treatment for their injuries and 10 have been evacuated to higher care facilities outside of the CENTCOM AOR, which is U.S. Central Command Area of Responsibility. The U.S. military said in a statement on Monday. An investigation is underway to determine the cause of the accident on Sunday in northeast Syria, it added. No enemy fire was reported at the time of the accident, the military said. U.S. forces operating in Syria since 2015 have come under sporadic attacks from ISIL fighters and Iranian-backed groups that are active in the country. At least 900 U.S. soldiers are deployed in Syria, along with an undisclosed number of U.S. military contractors, as part of operations to assist the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces in the fight against ISIL. In March, the governments of Iran and Syria condemned U.S. forces for carrying out attacks on Syrian soil that reportedly killed 19 people and were launched in apparent revenge for a drone attack that injured U.S. soldiers and killed a U.S. contractor. The suspected Iranian-made drone killed one U.S. contractor, injured another, and also wounded 5 U.S. soldiers at their base in the northeast of the country near the city of Hasakeh. A group of U.S. lawmakers has called for a U.S.-Africa trade summit planned for later this year to be moved from South Africa in response to what they said was the country's deepening military relationship with Russia. In a letter to U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and other senior officials, they also suggested South Africa is in danger of losing its benefits under the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, Washington's flagship trade program. South Africa is due to host the AGOA Forum in Johannesburg, a meeting of African leaders and U.S. officials to discuss the future of the program, which is slated to expire in 2025. South Africa's exports to the U.S. under AGOA reached nearly $1 billion in the first 3 months of this year, making it the second biggest beneficiary of the program after Nigeria. African nations are seeking to extend AGOA, which grants qualifying countries exports preferential access to the U.S. We are seriously concerned that hosting the 2023 AGOA Forum in South Africa would serve as an implicit endorsement of South Africa's damaging support for Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the letter, dated June 9, stated. Referring to the letter, South African Foreign Ministry spokesman Clayson Manila said on Twitter, there is no decision by the State Department or White House to move the AGOA Forum from South Africa. South Africa's Department of Trade and Industry, which manages the country's trade relations with the United States, said it was not planning to respond publicly to the letter. North Carolina Senate Republicans filed legislation Monday to strip Governor Roy Cooper of power to appoint a state board of elections members, intensifying a years-long struggle over state government powers between the GOP-led General Assembly and the Democratic governor. The unveiling of the bill came almost 2 hours after a panel Cooper created recommended changes designed to ease the current GOP dominance of University of North Carolina governing boards. The dueling proposals escalate the clash between Cooper and the General Assembly to reshape the balance of power within government in the final weeks of the year's main legislative session. Still, Republicans maintain the upper hand after regaining veto-proof control of the legislature in April. The current state board has 5 members appointed by the governor, 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans from candidate lists made by state party leaders. Under the GOP bill filed Monday, legislative leaders would appoint all 8 members. The Senate leader, House Speaker, and House and Senate minority leaders would pick 2 apiece but wouldn't be obligated to choose from the party's nominations, raising the possibility that unaffiliated voters could serve. The board administers elections in the 9th largest state, a presidential battleground where over 7 million voters are registered and statewide elections are usually close. 2 human rights groups have invited policymakers, journalists, and analysts to a screening in Washington of a BBC documentary on Narendra Modi that questions the Indian Prime Minister's leadership during the 2002 Gujarat riots ahead of his state visit to the White House. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International have scheduled the private screening for June 20, 2 days ahead of Modi's official state visit, hosted by United States President Joe Biden. In announcing the screening on Monday, Human Rights Watch said it wanted it to serve as a reminder that the documentary had been banned in India. The 2-part documentary, India, the Modi Question, focused on Modi's leadership as Chief Minister of the western state of Gujarat during riots in 2002, in which at least 1,000 people were killed, most of them Muslims. Activists put the toll at more than twice that. Modi has denied accusations that he did not do enough to stop the riots, and the Supreme Court ordered investigation found no evidence to prosecute him. The Indian government had reacted angrily to the documentary, which was released in January, calling it a propaganda piece and blocked sharing of any clips from it on social media. At least 9 people have been wounded in a shooting in Denver, a city in the U.S. state of Colorado. The shooting happened about 12:30 a.m. on Tuesday, just hours after the Denver Nuggets basketball team won its first NBA title. The incident took place about a mile from Ball Arena, where the Nuggets defeated the Miami Heat. 3 of the injured were in critical condition, the Denver Police Department said in a statement, adding that a suspect was shot and is in custody. Preliminary information indicates there are 4 victims who are being transported to the hospital. Officers took a possible suspect into custody who also has a suspected gunshot injury. Investigation ongoing, Denver police said. Artificial intelligence has been used to extract John Lennon's voice from an old demo to create the last Beatles record, decades after the band broke up, Paul McCartney said Tuesday. McCartney, who is 80 years old now, told the BBC that the technology was used to separate the Beatles' voices from background sounds during the making of director Peter Jackson's 2021 documentary series, The Beatles Get Back. The new song is set to be released later this year, he said. Jackson was able to extricate John's voice from a ropey little bit of cassette and a piano, McCartney told BBC Radio. He could separate them with AI. He would tell the machine, "That's a voice. This is a guitar. Lose the guitar." So when we came to make what will be the last Beatles record, it was a demo that John had that we worked on, he added. We were able to take John's voice and get it pure through this AI, and then we could mix the record as you would do. It gives you some sort of leeway. McCartney didn't identify the name of the demo, but the BBC and others said it was likely to be an unfinished 1978 love song by Lennon called Now and Then. The demo was included on a cassette labeled For Paul that McCartney had received from Lennon's widow, Yoko Ono, the BBC reported. McCartney described AI technology as kind of scary but exciting, adding, "We will just have to see where that leads." The same technology enabled McCartney to duet virtually with Lennon, who was murdered in 1980 on I Have Got a Feeling last year at Glastonbury Festival. Now it's time for global updates. Russian President Vladimir Putin suggested Tuesday that he could order his troops to try to seize more land in Ukraine to protect bordering Russian territory and asserted that Ukrainian forces had suffered catastrophic losses in a new counteroffensive. In some of his most detailed remarks about the war in months, the Russian leader also said he was not contemplating a new troop mobilization, as many Russians have feared, but did not rule it out. And he reiterated Russia's claim that Ukraine was responsible for blowing up a Dnieper River dam that caused vast flooding on both sides of the front line last week in the country's south. Putin's comments at an open meeting with military journalists and bloggers followed Kiev's claims that Ukrainian troops had captured a handful of villages in the early stages of the counteroffensive. The meeting, which lasted more than 2 hours, came after Russian missile strikes in central Ukraine killed at least 11 people overnight. Putin said Ukraine's counteroffensive has been unsuccessful. He asserted that Ukraine lost 160 tanks and over 360 other armored vehicles, while Russia lost 54 tanks since the new assault began. Those claims could not be immediately verified. Ukrainian officials typically do not comment on losses. The White House offered no immediate reaction to Putin's claims. A knife-wielding assailant stabbed 2 college students to death in the streets of the English city of Nottingham and then fatally stabbed a middle-aged man, stole his van and ran down 3 pedestrians in a shocking rampage early Tuesday morning, police said. Police arrested a 31-year-old man on suspicion of murder. The Nottinghamshire Police Force said investigators believe the perpetrator acted alone and detectives were working with counter-terrorism officers to try to establish a motive. This is a horrific and tragic incident which has claimed the lives of 3 people, Chief Constable Kate Meynell said. A man who was among the people struck in the hit and run was hospitalized in critical condition. The death included 2 19-year-old students from the University of Nottingham. "We are shocked and devastated by the news," the school said in an announcement. A graduation ball scheduled for Tuesday evening was cancelled. The knife attack on the students occurred around dawn in an area near student housing, a short walk from the university's Jubilee campus. A caller reported that 2 stabbing victims were lying in the street. Police think the attacker then killed a man in his 50s and took his van, Meynell said. His body was found on a different street more than a mile from the first crime scene. Pakistan's army and civil authorities planned to evacuate 80,000 people to safety along the country's southern coast before the arrival of cyclone Biparjoy, and thousands living in low-lying regions of western India already have sought shelter from the tropical storm system, officials said Tuesday. The cyclone forecast to slam ashore on Thursday is expected to be the most powerful to hit western India and Pakistan since 2021. On Tuesday morning, Biparjoy was in the Arabian Sea, 470 kilometers south of Karachi, the capital of Sindh province. Pakistan's National Disaster Management Authority said. The cyclone was packing maximum sustained winds of 180 km per hour, according to the India Meteorological Department. It is projected to make landfall near Jakhau Port in the Kutch district of India's Gujarat state. Residents living within 5 kilometers of the coast in Gujarat were evacuated, and those living within 10 kilometers may have to move out over the next 2 days, officials said. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas began a visit to China on Tuesday. That comes as Beijing is seeking a larger role in Middle East politics and competing for energy resources. In announcing the visit, China's foreign minister said China was willing to help broker relations between the Palestinian Authority and the Israeli government that have deteriorated to the lowest level in recent years. The ministry did not say who Abbas would meet in Beijing or give other details of his 4-day visit. Increased fighting over the last year between Israel and the Palestinians in the West Bank has resulted in the deadliest period of violence between the sides in years in that territory. The visit also comes after China hosted talks between Iran and Saudi Arabia that resulted in the two restoring diplomatic relations. France's government accused Russia on Tuesday of operating a long-running online manipulation campaign, including impersonating the websites of leading French media and the French Foreign Ministry, aimed at spreading confusion and false information about the war in Ukraine. The French agency responsible for fighting foreign digital interference, Millennium, said it has monitored the alleged operation since soon after Russia invaded its neighbor and that France was one of several European countries targeted. It said it traced the campaign to Russian individuals, companies, and state entities or entities affiliated to the Russian state. Last month, the agency detected a mirror website mimicking the French foreign ministries and intervened with protective and preventive measures, Millennium said in a report published Tuesday. France condemns these actions, which are unworthy of a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. No attempt at manipulation will distract France from its support for Ukraine in the face of Russia's war of aggression, the minister said in a statement with unusually strong wording. The Russian embassy in France did not immediately comment. Now it's time for business news. Today's New York stock close price is 15,667.79. The NYSE Composite is increased by 119.32 points or 0.77%. Tokyo stock close price is 33,018.65. The Nikkei 225 index is increased by 584.65 points or 1.80%. Shanghai stock close price is 3,233.67. The Shanghai index is increased by 4.84 points or 0.15%. Hong Kong stock close price is 19,521.42. The Hang Seng index is increased by 117.11 points or 0.60%. Bombay stock close price is 63,143.16. The Sensex index is increased by 418.45 points or 0.67%. Let's have a look on today's sports stories. US Olympic champion sprinter Tori Bowie died from complications of childbirth, according to an autopsy report reported by US media outlets. Bowie, who won 3 medals at the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Games, was found dead last month. She was 32. The report from the Office of the Medical Examiner in Orlando, Florida said Bowie was estimated to be 8 months pregnant and showing signs of undergoing labor when she was discovered dead on May 2. It said she was found in bed in a secured residence with possible complications including respiratory distress and eclampsia. The autopsy report said the manner of death is natural. Bowie's agent Kimberly Holland told CBS News the news on Monday would end the hurtful speculation about the cause of death. Black women have the highest maternal mortality rate in the United States, 69.9 per thousand live births for 2021, almost 3 times the rate for white women, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The Denver Nuggets have sealed their first NBA title in franchise history, defeating the Miami Heat 94-89 to end a 47-season wait for a championship. Serbian star Nikola Jokic scored 28 points and took 16 rebounds on Monday, leading the Nuggets to win the best-of-7 NBA Finals 4-1. The Nuggets initially struggled with shooting, missing 23 of 28 shots from three-point range and 10 of 23 free throws. It was ugly and we couldn't make shots, but at the end, we figured it out, Jokic said after hugging all of his jubilant teammates and coaches. I'm just happy we won the game. Jokic was named the NBA Finals Most Valuable Player after becoming the first in league history to lead the playoffs in total points, rebounds, and assists. The championship also filed the final gap in the impressive resume of the 28-year-old, a 2-time NBA MVP and 5-time All-Star center in his 8th NBA campaign. French football star Kylian Mbappe has told Paris Saint-Germain he will leave the Ligue 1 champions when his contract ends next year. French sports newspaper L'Equipe and international media organizations have reported. According to Monday's reports, Mbappe left the PSG hierarchy stunned by his decision to not take up the option of a 12-month extension on his contract, which he presented in a formal letter, and follows Lionel Messi recently announcing his departure from PSG to Major League Soccer side Inter Miami in the United States. PSG now appears set to have to weigh up whether to sell the 24-year-old forward, who scored a hat-trick for France during its defeat by Argentina in the 2022 World Cup final, or see him leave the club for nothing at the end of his current deal in June 2024, according to news reports. Reports in France had suggested PSG was hopeful for an extension to Mbappe's contract. Let's have a look on today's weather forecast. That's all in today's news. Keep watching Millennium News 24 for latest update. Millennium TV US and Millennium News 24 network is transmitted and available to be watched free for all at TVs such as Sony, Samsung, LG, Roku TV, Amazon TV and Apple TV, and also in all European countries and Australia, available with Sky Network, Worldwide Jadoo TV, Radiant IPTV, Worldwide Jago BD Network and Horizon Satellite globally. Stay connected with us for all types of informative and entertainment program. Thank you.